was born Tong That Tien, daughter of a minor official in the imperial capital. My father held a humble 7th-rank post, yet my mother's virtue and beauty were famous across the province. She bore 9 children, all clever and graceful, and every one of my sisters married into prominent families. One became the wife of the prime minister, another the crown princess herself. Our family name, once obscure, now carried the scent of nobility. When I turned 15, my father was reassigned as prefect of Fukchou. Around that time, my parents arranged a marriage for me with To Bakwi, eldest son of the wealthy To family of Jiangnan, a union that would tie our modest bloodline to the richest merchants in the south. But just before the engagement was finalized, my twin sister, now the crown princess, secretly sent word that the To clan was under investigation for minting counterfeit coins. My parents panicked. To protect the family from scandal, they quietly prepared to withdraw from the match, keeping the secret locked within the household. Traveling south to assume his post, father took along my cousin Tong Ni, daughter of his younger brother, a girl raised under our roof since she lost her mother young. She had grown proud and envious forever, comparing herself to us. Seeing me promised to a man of fortune made her jealousy fester. That journey changed everything. One night, as the riverboat rocked gently beneath the moonlight, Tong Ni smiled and asked me to walk the deck with her for some air. "Sister, look," she whispered, pointing toward the water. "Is that someone drowning?" I leaned over the railing, peering into the ripples, then felt a sharp shove. The cold river swallowed me whole. Through the choking dark, I heard her voice above the splash. "Tong That Tien, you were born lucky, that's all. Without you, they'll let me marry into the To family. From now on, your good fortune will belong to me." But she never knew that the To family was doomed, that I was already meant to break the engagement, not fulfill it. Those words were the last I heard before the current dragged me under. My lungs burned, my vision dimmed, and the world vanished into silence. When I awoke, I remembered nothing, not my name, not my past. Only that I had been pulled from the river by a man whose eyes gleamed with greed. He was a slave trader. Seeing my fair skin and delicate features, he decided I would fetch a fine price. A week later, I was sold to the household of Prince Li Tu Kiem, the Duke of Ningbo. From that moment, I ceased to be Tong That Tien. They called me Van Kam. The matron of the house, Lady Dowager Li, studied me long and hard before sighing. "You've lost your memory, child. Perhaps heaven took pity on you. You have the bearing of a lady who knows what family you came from. Serve well, and you might yet rise above your fate." Her words sealed my new life. I was assigned to a quiet courtyard with only a 12-year-old maid, Jai Ni, to attend me. The girl was sharp-tongued but kind, and she whispered what others would not. The Duke, she said, had lost his wife years ago, a gentlewoman named Bak Nuok Nuok, beloved beyond measure. Since her death, he had shunned all women. One maid who dared climb into his bed had been beaten nearly to death. At that, fear curdled my blood. But fear could not change my destiny. I had been bought, and what was bought could be sold again. If I failed to please the household, I might end up in a brothel like the crying girls I'd seen along the trader's route. The first night they sent me to his chambers, the Duke shouted before I could even step inside, "I need no women out." A shoe flew past my head, slamming the door shut. The steward dragged me back, muttering that perhaps the hour was unlucky. For 2 nights it was the same. Laughter followed me through the corridors, mocking cruel. My stomach twisted with dread. Then came the 3rd night. The Duke returned from a banquet reeking of wine, his servants half carrying him. The steward's eyes lit up. "Now, girl, your chance." I trembled as I entered the dimly lit chamber. On the bed lay a tall man in black robes, his hair disheveled, his handsome face shadowed by grief. Even in sleep, he looked tormented. I poured him water, held it to his lips. He stirred, spilling it across his chest. His robe clung wetly to his skin. I hesitated, then hands shaking began to undress him to keep him from catching cold. My heart pounded like a drum. "Nwok nwok," he murmured, half-conscious. I froze. That was the name of his late wife. I'm here, I whispered. And so beneath flickering candlelight and the scent of wine, I surrendered the last of my fear. When dawn came, I slipped away, praying he would not remember. But he did. Days later, when I was summoned again, the Duke's gaze was sharp as a blade. "You are not Nuak," he said coldly. I knelt. My lord the Lady Dowager commanded me to serve. He studied me a long moment, then turned aside. Leave. I thought it was the end, but the next morning the steward arrived beaming. "Pack your things, girl. His Grace says you'll move to his quarters." From a discarded concubine, I had become the woman beside the Duke of Ungzhou. That night, when he came again, there was no wine between us, only the slow, dangerous tenderness of a man too long restrained. I knew the truth then. If I could not be free, I must learn to survive. Life beside the Duke was nothing like I'd imagined. Li Tu Kiem was not a cruel man, but he was guarded as if a shadow forever trailed his soul. When we were together, he was distant at first, his voice calm, his eyes unreadable. Yet in the dark of night, when restraint gave way to longing, he would hold me with a desperate fervor that made me forget who I was or had been. For 3 nights he did not leave my chamber. Servants whispered that the Duke, cold as ice for years, had finally thawed. The Dowager's joy knew no bounds. She sent gifts of jewelry silks and tonics, praising me as heaven's blessing. I smiled in gratitude, though exhaustion left me trembling. My body ached, but my heart dared hope perhaps this man, once so untouchable, might someday see me, not as a purchased woman, but as his own. Days passed in a quiet rhythm. I stayed within the courtyard reading or embroidering while Jai Ni chattered about the household gossip. I learned that before his wife's death, the Duke had been gentle and cheerful, loved by all. But when Lady Bak Nuok's carriage tumbled off a cliff years ago, something inside him died too. He blamed himself, withdrew from court, and built walls no one could breach. Until me. One afternoon, while resting against his chest, I dared to ask, "My lord, will you ever send me away?" He lifted my chin, studying my face as though searching for something lost. "Is that what you fear?" I nodded, telling him what little I remembered awakening by the river being sold by the slaver named Nam Na Tu, hearing the cries of girls dragged to the brothel. "I cannot go back to that darkness," I whispered. His expression softened. "Then you will not," he said. "You are mine now. No one will touch you again." It was the first kindness anyone had shown me since that night on the river. Tears welled in my eyes. For the first time, I believed I might live without fear. Weeks turned into months. One morning, the Dowager noticed I looked pale and summoned a physician. After taking my pulse, the old man smiled and bowed deeply. "Congratulations, my lady, you are with child." The Dowager clapped her hands in delight. "Heaven bless us, at last the Duke shall have an heir." Her laughter rang through the hall. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I had prayed for this, for proof that I belonged, but when the words came true, all I felt was a trembling disbelief. When Li Tu Kiem heard the news, he stood silent, then slowly reached for my hand. "You truly are carrying my child." I nodded. His palm covered mine, rough and warm. "I have waited so long for this," he murmured, lowering his head to rest against my belly. "So long." That night he sat beside me in the courtyard, watching fireflies drift across the pond. "You must take care," he said. "I've lost once before, I will not lose again." After that, his tenderness grew. He forbade me from tiring myself, ordered the kitchen to prepare every delicacy, and visited daily to ask after my health. The Dowager prayed to Buddha, lighting incense for a safe birth. The whole household began to whisper my name with reverence. By the 3rd month, the physician returned and announced in astonishment, "My lady bears twins, perhaps even triplets." The Dowager nearly fainted from joy. Triplets. 3 sons to carry our name. The heavens are merciful indeed. Her laughter echoed down the corridors. I smiled faintly, though inside I felt the weight of it all pressing against my ribs. I had come from death and slavery to this golden cage. My womb had bought me peace, but it had also chained me here. One afternoon, a guest arrived, a matronly noblewoman from the capital, the Duchess of Tuque. She and the dowager had been rivals in youth, always comparing beauty, wealth, and children. Now they competed in grandchildren. Hearing of my pregnancy, the Duchess came to see the miracle woman herself. When she entered, I rose and bowed. Her eyes flickered with surprise, then narrowed in recognition. "This face," she whispered, turning to the dowager. "Tell me, does she not resemble a certain lady in the capital, the daughter of Prefect Tong, perhaps?" The dowager's fan slipped from her hand. "Impossible," she breathed. The Duchess smiled thinly. "Perhaps. But I once met Prefect Tong's 7th daughter, the very image of this girl. They say she drowned years ago." A strange unease stirred in me, as though a curtain had shifted somewhere deep inside my memory. The dowager quickly dismissed the guests, but her face remained pale. That night, as Li Tu Kiem sat by my bed, I asked softly, "My lord, what if I once belonged to another family?" He brushed a lock of hair from my face. "Then they did not cherish you as they should. Whatever your past was, you are here now. You are safe." He kissed my brow, and I wanted to believe him. Yet I could not shake the feeling that something long forgotten was slowly waking, like a name whispered through water, waiting to be heard. Summer arrived heavy and breathless. My belly had grown full and round, and every step felt like climbing a hill. The dowager's joy filled the estate. She ordered silk banners hung at the gates, promising rich rewards when the children arrived. Li Tu Kiem stayed close by my side, refusing to let servants tend to me alone. At night he would fan me himself, murmuring quiet words meant to soothe. When labor came, it was a storm. Rain lashed the roof, thunder rolled, and pain tore through me like fire. Voices blurred around me, maids crying, the midwife shouting for towels. Somewhere outside the door, the Duke's voice broke through, "Von Kamm, hold on, you must live." I wanted to answer him, but the agony swallowed my words. For hours I drifted between consciousness and darkness. At one point I heard the midwife whisper, "She's too weak perhaps, save the child instead." Then the Duke's roar, "No, save her, bring the physician now." Those words anchored me. With the last of my strength, I prayed to live not for myself, but for the 3 lives inside me. And when dawn bled across the horizon, the cries of infants filled the room. 3 boys. The dowager nearly collapsed from joy, chanting prayers of thanks, while servants danced and wept. The Duke, standing pale and trembling, pressed his forehead to my hand. "You did it," he whispered. "You've given me everything." In the days that followed, celebration swept through the mansion. Drums and firecrackers sounded for 3 nights. Every official in Jiangnam came bearing gifts. Yet amid all the glory, the Duke did not come to see me. He lingered outside, visiting the babies, but avoiding my eyes. Perhaps he still remembered what I had gasped to him in the haze of labor, that once my family was found, I wished to return home. When I was strong enough to rise, I looked at my son's 3 identical faces, tiny fists clenched like seeds of hope. They were my light, my proof of survival. But each time I gazed at them, I also saw the bars of my gilded prison. On the 3rd day, the Duke finally entered my chamber. The servant slipped out, leaving us alone. He stood there in silence for a long moment, then said quietly, "I have never wronged you, Von Kamm. Why did you ask to leave?" I met his gaze. "You have treated me well, my lord, but kindness is not freedom. Between us, there will never be equality." His jaw tightened. "You wish to go because you despise the title of concubine." "No," I said, "because I cannot bear to live beneath another's shadow. A woman should not spend her life wondering whether she will be sold or dismissed when affection fades." For a moment, pain flickered in his eyes. Then he stepped forward, gripping my hand. "Von Kamm, you are strong, but foolish. You think of leaving, yet what of our children? What of me?" He pulled me against his chest, his voice breaking. "Stay. I'll make you my TRACFI recognized and protected. You will have rank a name in our records. You will never be cast out again." And so it was. The imperial decree came within a month, sealing my place as the Duke's consort. I should have been content, yet part of me still ached for something nameless, the life that had been stolen from me, the memory I could not reach. At our son's full-month banquet, the manor was crowded with noble families. I appeared beside the dowager radiant in silk while whispers rippled through the hall. So young, so beautiful, some said. To bear 3 sons in one birth, what fortune, I smiled, bowing where required, feeling their envy like perfume in the air. But one woman's gaze cut through the noise. Her name was Bak Fien Fien, the younger sister of the Duke's late wife. She approached with a cold smile. "How quickly the mountains forget their tigers once the cats learn to roar," she said softly. "Enjoy your glory while it lasts." I turned away without reply, unwilling to quarrel during the feast. Yet her words pricked like thorns. The next day, she confronted me again, sneering, "A nameless concubine who dares to sit where my sister once stood. Let's see how long you can keep that seat." Before I could answer, the Duke appeared behind me, his voice sharp as steel. "Lady Bak, you overstep." Her face blanched. "You meant insult," he cut her off. "You will apologize or leave this house." I caught his sleeve. "Don't," I whispered. "Let it go. People will say you've forgotten your first wife." His anger cooled at my touch. Later, he smiled faintly and said, "You are wiser than all of them." I wanted to believe that wisdom would be enough. That night, as we lay beneath the glow of a lantern, he murmured, "Let's have a daughter next someone with your eyes." I laughed softly, though inside, unease still stirred. The following morning, a servant burst in, pale and trembling. "My lord," he gasped, "the lady Bak Nuak Nuak, she's returned." The cup fell from my hand, shattering against the floor. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. Impossible. The Duke's wife had been dead for years. And yet by dusk she stood in our hall alive. She was exactly as the stories described, elegant, ethereal, the kind of woman whose presence could still a room. Clad in plain robes with hair loose over her shoulders, she knelt before the dowager, her voice trembling. "Mother, I have returned. I lost my memory after the carriage fell. The villagers on the mountain took me in. Only recently did I remember who I am." Gasps rippled through the servants. The dowager froze, torn between disbelief and joy. But to me, the sight of her felt like a blade pressing against my throat. When Li Tu Kaem entered, his steps faltered. For a long moment, he simply stared at her, as though the dead had come back to life. She crawled to him, clutching his robes, sobbing, "Husband, I have wronged you for so many years. Heaven has returned me to your side." He hesitated before gently raising her up. "Enough. You should rest." His voice was strained, half disbelief, half ache. I stood silent, watching the woman who had once owned his heart. There was no triumph in her eyes when she finally glanced my way, only cold contempt. That single look told me everything she knew who I was, and she hated me for existing. From that day, the air in the manor changed. She took up residence in the East Wing, the chambers that had once been mine. The Duke divided his time between us, though I could see where his thoughts drifted. Some nights he would go to her under the pretense of ensuring her health. Other nights he stayed in his study until dawn. To the outside world, it was a tale of miracle reunion, a noble couple parted by fate now restored. To me, it was the slow collapse of every fragile thing I had built. One afternoon, I found her in the nursery cradling my eldest son. The child whimpered, uneasy, in her arms. I hurried forward. "Please, my lady, let me." She turned, eyes gleaming with disdain. "You dare speak to me as an equal." Her smile sharpened. "You forget yourself, concubine. These children are born of my husband. As his lawful wife, their blood belongs to me." I froze. "They are my children." "Your womb, perhaps," she said lightly, "but not your name. The Duke will see reason. Soon enough, they will be recorded under mine where they belong." I clutched my son close, trembling. "You've been gone for years. I kept him alive when you were dust." "Then you've done your duty." she sneered, brushing past me. "Know your place, or I will remind you of it." Her words haunted me for days. Servants began whispering again. Some avoided my gaze, entirely bowing lower to her instead. At night, I lay awake staring at the moonlight pooling across the floor, wondering how easily a person could vanish from her own life twice. The Duke visited less and less. When he did, he spoke gently but distantly, as though afraid to choose. "Nuuk Nuuk suffered greatly," he said once. "She has changed." "She has," I replied quietly. "So have I." Before he could answer, a servant burst in. "My lord, the Lady Nuuk Nuuk has fallen ill." He was gone before the words finished. I sat alone, hands resting on my knees, feeling the weight of something inevitable. From then on, his nights belonged to her. Mine were filled with silence. She recovered swiftly, but her illness became a convenient excuse for him to remain by her side. Soon she began strolling through my courtyard with a mocking smile, trailing her fingers along the garden wall as if reclaiming old territory. "You must understand," she said sweetly one morning, "the Duke and I share years you can never replace. You were only a passing shadow." I stared at her calm despite the storm in my chest. Even a shadow leaves its mark when the light returns. Her eyes narrowed. "We'll see how long that mark lasts." After she left, the dowager sent for me. The old woman's face was drawn weary. "Child, do not despair. You have given this house 3 heirs. Whatever she says, you have my protection." I knelt beside her, tears burning my eyes. "Thank you, Mother." But even her words could not ease the fear curling inside me. That night, I went to check on my children, holding each tiny hand as they slept. "No one will take you from me," I whispered. No one. Still deep down, I knew that in this world of rank and bloodlines, love and motherhood were never enough. A few days later, I was summoned to the main hall. When I arrived, I found the dowager pale and trembling, facing the Duchess of Tuque, once more this time accompanied by 2 veiled noblewomen. "These are guests from the capital," the Duchess announced, "the wife of the Prime Minister and the Crown Princess herself." Everyone knelt instantly. My heart pounded as I bowed, the floor cold beneath my palms. When the Crown Princess stepped forward and lifted her veil, the world tilted. Her face, her eyes, her mouth, her very breath was mine. The dowager gasped. "By heaven!" The Duchess smiled faintly. "Did I not tell you this woman bears the face of Prefect Tong's lost daughter, the 7th Miss who drowned years ago?" The Crown Princess' eyes brimmed with tears. "Sister," she whispered, her voice breaking, "we've searched for you everywhere." The room spun. Memories surged like floodwaters, moonlight, a shove, the cold rush of water, a cruel voice saying, "Your life will be mine." I opened my mouth, but no sound came. The world went black. When I awoke, I was in my old chamber, but not the one in the Duke's estate. The scent of sandalwood lingered in the air, faintly familiar, like something from a half-remembered dream. Around me stood 2 women whose faces were mirrors of my own youth, my sisters. The elder, regal and composed, was the Crown Princess herself. The younger trembled with tears. That Tien one whispered, "You're home. You're safe now. Home." The word struck like lightning through my chest, scattering the fog that had clouded my mind for so long. Memories flooded back in fragments. My father's gentle smile, my mother's laughter, the grand house in the capital, and that moonlit night when Tongni's hand shoved me into the river. The terror, the betrayal, the suffocating cold, every moment returned with cruel clarity. I wept until I could no longer breathe. My sisters held me as though afraid I might disappear again. Between sobs, I managed to tell them everything, how I had been sold, renamed, how the Duke had bought me and made me his concubine, how I had borne his sons, and how his dead wife had suddenly risen from the grave to reclaim it all. Their faces darkened with fury. "That woman Tongni, she still lives, the Crown Princess," said coldly. "She married into the To family after you vanished, the very house Father sought to sever ties with. When we discovered the truth, Father nearly fell ill with rage. She will answer for what she's done." The younger sister clenched her fists. "And that Duke, how dare he keep our sister as a concubine, knowing nothing of her rank? The moment he hears you are a prefect's daughter, a sister to the crown princess, he'll fall to his knees. But I shook my head. Do not punish him. He did not know. Without him, I would have perished. My words softened their anger, but not their resolve. Still said the elder, "You are a daughter of the Tong family. You will not live beneath another's name again." Later that day, a carriage arrived at the Duke's manor bearing the royal crest. The Duke himself came out to greet it, confusion etched across his face. When he saw who stepped down, the crown princess, followed by the dowager of the prime minister's house, his expression drained of color. Inside the hall filled with nobles and servants alike. The dowager trembled, realizing too late what she had allowed to unfold in her home. The crown princess turned to her voice, calm but cutting. "We've come for my sister, the 7th Miss of the Tong family, your so-called concubine, Von Kam. She was taken from us years ago. By law and by blood, she belongs to us." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The Duke's eyes found mine as I stepped forward. You remember?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "I do," I said softly, "and now I must return to where I belong." His face crumpled, the mask of authority breaking into something raw. "I never meant to harm you. Had I known." I raised a hand. "You saved me when no one else would. For that, I owe you gratitude. But a bird cannot live forever in a cage, no matter how gilded." The dowager wiped her eyes. "Child, you will always have a place here." "I know," I whispered, "but it is not my place to stay." Before leaving, I visited my sons. They were sleeping, cheeks round and soft, the image of their father. I kissed each tiny forehead. "You will never remember me," I murmured, "but I will remember you all my life." The Duke appeared at the doorway, silent. I turned once more to face him. "Take care of them," I said. His lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. When I bowed and walked past, I felt his gaze follow me until the light faded behind me forever. Back in the capital, the Tong family welcomed me as though the years of pain had never passed. My parents wept until their voices broke. Servants lit lanterns across the estate celebrating the miracle return of the lost daughter. Yet in the quiet of night, I would sometimes wake to phantom cries of infants, to the memory of a man whispering my name in the dark. Months later, word reached us that the Duke of Agno had resigned his title and retreated to the mountains with his sons. Some said he built a shrine for his late wife, others that he lived in silence, raising the boys alone. No one truly knew. As for Tongni, justice found her swiftly. Her crimes were revealed, her deceit, her greed, her attempted murder. She was stripped of her rank and exiled to a remote temple where she would spend the rest of her life praying for the sister she had tried to kill. I never sought revenge. I had already reclaimed what she tried to steal: my life, my name, and my freedom. Standing by the lotus pond one evening, my reflection shimmered on the water, older and wiser. I realized then that every misfortune, every betrayal had shaped me into someone stronger than fear. The river that once sought to drown me had carried me instead toward rebirth. I smiled at my reflection and whispered, "Thank you for letting me live." And somewhere perhaps far away, I hoped the Duke of Nyo might hear it in the wind and know that I had forgiven him. Because in the end, love and pain are not opposites, they are the same current that carries us home. If you found meaning in this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales of resilience and fate. Tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were her?